Low speed Sykes is riding around at far too dangerous conditions. Very easy to aquaplane in conditions like this. A lot of standing water is going to be out there.
I'd like to see where Jules Cluzel is at the moment, after we saw him in his undergarments a few minutes ago waiting to get into a pool. He didn't need to get into a pool, he only needed to stand in pit lane.
Yeah, and it is still warm out there. It's 26 degrees, 20. So they're just using the air guns to clear off as much of that as possible, and that's what you have to do at this stage. Toprak doesn't want to be too cross-eyed when he's out on the bike, but he's still a big boost in terms of his ability to perform well in those conditions.
I think the race that I call to mind to the greater extent is the Super Pole race in Portimao, where
soaked in their pit box.
Nobody ever likes a delayed start, but I tell you what, we've wished for this, haven't we, Steve? So we can't complain about it now, and let's hope we do get a wet race. It adds an extra little bit of spice.
Well, we've had spice all the way through the season, and you can see there for Garrett Gerloff relaxed in his pit box, and the number 31 Yamaha getting ready for a second row of the grid start. His best qualifying effort since Estoril earlier in the season, so certainly for Gerloff, good to see him able to have that turn of speed all the way through this weekend, and hopefully we're able to see him sign off his season with a few good results. But these conditions, total lottery at this stage, so we'll just have to wait and see when the new race start will be announced. But you can see the rain still really hammering down at this point. Kind
of weather we're used to seeing in places like Malaysia and so on. It's this part of the world, isn't it? When it comes down heavily. Speaking to our colleagues who came to the circuit much in advance of the round to prepare everything behind the scenes in order for this race to take place. Of course, it's only the second weekend since this circuit was inaugurated, let alone raced on. This the first race.
Onto the starting grid, there's a huge amount of standing water down there now.
When we see the pictures away from the circuit and we see the palm trees and so on, it looks like one of those classic images that you're used to seeing on the 1 o'clock news, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think Michael Fish might have been around as well just to give the weather forecast.
He's swimming out there.
It's definitely going to be a case for all of these teams and riders trying to see what's going to happen, because obviously enough here at this part of the world, around about 6 o'clock you do tend to get very dark, so you'll run out of light very quickly on a day like this as well. It's only 3 o'clock local time, so you do need the rain to stop. You do pain all the way through. You can see the safety car out on track now. They're trying to assess just how much standing water there is. Just look at the pictures, they speak for themselves. Yes,
it's more of an unsafety car at the moment, isn't it, as it makes its way around the circuit, 4.3 kilometres from the riders in front of you, but also you're going to have the rain lashing down on your visor. It's not like when you're driving out on a motorway and you've got the windscreen wipers on. These riders are going to be receiving it full in the face while it's still coming down.
Yeah, that was one of the issues we had at Imola a few years ago. It wasn't so much the actual conditions of the track, it was the spray that would kick off. Obviously enough, in Imola that's where the spray gets held up in a lot of trees and wooded areas, whereas here it's just because of that sheer standing water. But that's another challenge for everyone to deal with. You can see here, just looking down towards turn 10, that there's absolutely
the grandstand on the other side of the track, let alone the other side of the circuit.
Yeah, that's only about 75 metres away from us, so the visibility really has come down at this stage. But as you can see, for Michael Ruben Rinaldi on the 5th row of the grid,
also be the first rider to encounter the puddles. Penny for your thoughts, Mr. Chaz Davies. His final race weekend in World SBK. He's one of the top 10 riders with most starts and certainly most podiums in the Superbike World Championship. He's seen everything down his Superbike World Championship career.
Obviously, we saw a few spits of rain during the Super Sport class, but nothing quite like this.
Yes, it doesn't look good at the moment, does it, to go racing this afternoon, as Tom Sykes pretends to be squeezing the moisture out of his gloves. So that's because he was the last rider still making his way round on the track.
Well, at least for Tom, he doesn't have to dry his hair off. He's going to live to fight another season in World SBK.
Yes, he's certainly keen to remain in the Superbike World Championship. He was frustrated to have been rather brushed aside by BMW after what's been his third, but also his best campaign with that BMW Motorrad outfit, where he's had podium finishes, where he's looked on the pace, where he was riding well in the World Championship standings ahead of teammate Michael van der Mark on the way of Eugene Laverty and Loris Baz. It's going to be 4 riders, all given equal status theoretically from the BMW factory in 2022.
Yeah, BMW making a big effort for next year, and obviously enough, they've had some reasons to smile through the course this year, none more so than when this man Michael van der Mark was able to pick up a wet weather victory in Portimao. And certainly for van der Mark, that was the highlight of this season. It has been a big challenge for him after switching from the Yamaha squad last year.
Certainly secondary to the Riders World Championship fight, the manufacturers' standings. Yamaha 574 points, Ducati 558 points, Kawasaki 520 points. It does go to show what a brilliant and close-fought championship we've had this season.
Manufacturers very closely matched through the course of this season. Bit of misfortune for all of the different riders and those manufacturers through the course this year, but on the balance,
Kawasaki lost ground mainly as a result, to be honest, of Alex Lowe's being injured, and then when Jonathan Rea had incidents, there was no one there to sort of pick up the pieces, and Kawasaki's run of consecutive scoring that dated back years went out the window. And once you lose major points, they're difficult to make up in the Manufacturers' Championship, because it's only the best scoring rider from each team that counts towards that Manufacturers' title, unlike the Teams Award. At the moment, the water is coming up to your ankles.
Yeah, and that gives you the perfect illustration of just how much standing water there is. As it is right now, it's definitely a little bit of time to get yourself cooled off at this stage for some of the super sport riders.
Well, every reason to enjoy himself, Mr. Dominic Egerton, the 2021 World Champion. And why bother going back to the hotel? You're probably not going to be able to get back there anyway in these conditions, when you can just stand in the middle of the pit lane and have a wash there.
Yeah,
Others wouldn't even withstand it. The palm trees could barely withstand the wind, let alone the rain, and it is still coming down very heavily. And all that's happening is that
from the Safety Commission come together and make a decision about what to do. We saw that, if you think back to Laus's Ring in 2016, we had similar conditions to this. Obviously, Sepang, we've had similar situations as well.
Well, I know who might be the only rider who wants to make sure that something happens this afternoon, and that'll be Jonathan Rea, because if the Super Pole race is cancelled, he's going to lose potentially 12 points there.
Well, I remember at Assen when we had the snowstorm a few years ago in 2019, Johnny was one of the few riders that was out there saying, oh, we should be able to race in these conditions. Even with the snow, he knew it was a chance to make up points in Alvaro Bautista that year. He wanted to go out and race, and obviously in conditions like this, he's the rider.
We're into the realms of conjecture now, but potentially we could be looking at two feature races tomorrow, which narrows the window to make up a points margin.
Yeah, it's quite similar to what we saw in Qatar in 2018 when we saw Superbike races cancelled, and that was due to pretty sudden downpour in the middle of the desert. And obviously enough, we had standing water all the way around. We had a lot of flooding around the track as well in that day, and being tremendous. You can see for
doesn't stop us from offering some conjecture, though, does it? It might be above our pay grade, but it won't stop us from passing comment, as Toprak Razgatligolu gives a little bit of an extra dousing to Jules Cluzel. Well, I said previously I wanted to know where Cluzel had managed to get to. The number 16 tattoo on his back gives it away, if nothing else. And he and Dominic Egerton before him already claps of thunder now, I think I could hear there, either that or something similar. But yeah, all going on at the moment out there, and I just cannot see how we could possibly be racing in this situation. Watching Scott Redding at the moment as he watches on his final weekend, of course, with Ducati before he moves to BMW machinery next season. Wet weather expert Tati Mercado. There you go. There's a rider who'd fancy going out.
Yeah, I think none of these riders are fancying going out in these conditions.
As to what might be happening here, just discussions between fellow Ducati riders and former teammates as well, Scott Redding and Chaz Davies. See if we can listen in.
The pits, he was out on slick tyres to get to the grid, and that definitely would have been a hairy ride for him as he made his way back around. And he was just saying that to Chaz Davies.
Raceable at this current point, but also the weather not easing up to any great extent.
Yeah, and there are a lot of dark clouds still in the area where the weather's been coming from, so that is the challenge. And you can see there for Jonathan Rea just giving Jake, his son there, a little bit of good luck for his football match
Here this afternoon.
Yeah, and certainly they'll make a decision fairly soon about that. But the riders, you can see, they're in no rush to be out on track. They know exactly what.
Versus Jonathan Rea, 30 points in it ahead of this weekend, the season finale. And, of course, also the Manufacturers World Championship up for grabs, with Yamaha leading the way, but only a mere 16 points in it at the top of the standings. Yamaha ahead of...
Else they just need to try and keep themselves calm at this stage and just see what happens at the top of the hour.
Fun and frolics has been the story of this afternoon. A planned race one from the 2021 Pirelli Indonesian round. But we'll have to wait and see when we can finally get underway with the first ever Superbike World Championship race